showbiz. Whatever it is, we are always ready and set to give you what you need. We also run visual advert for your company, products and services. And we air not just on radio, but also on our online TV. For more information and booking, you can visit Flow 94.9 FM. It's 6 p.m. This is News Now on Flow 94.9 FM Umwahia, the flow of God's own state. Good evening. My name is Mercy Orji. Now the headlines. Code of Conduct Tribunal adjourns Justice Onoyen's trial indefinitely. NLC insists on 30,000 naira minimum wage as National Assembly begins public hearing. Former Abia State Governor warns Ohanes and Libo against partisanship. And on the foreign scene, Sudan President vows to restore peace amid protests. Now the news in details. The Code of Conduct Tribunal has adjourned hearing in the case of false assets declaration filed against suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen, indefinitely. The CCT chairman, Danladi Omar, who announced the adjournment on Monday, said it was in obedience to the interim order granted by the Court of Appeal, Abuja. The appellate court had on Thursday ordered the tribunal to stay proceedings pending ruling on an application to stay proceedings filed by Onogen. The National Orientation Agency, NOA, of Nigeria has reacted to the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen, by President Muhammadu Buhari. Speaking in an interview with Newsman, the Director General of NOA, Garba Abari, stated that the presidency's action was based on the Court of Competent Jurisdiction, adding that the concerns of the nation has been taken off the realm of legalism and legality.
The federal government has acted, and it has acted in good faith. It has acted on the orders of a court of competent jurisdiction. And the conversation is now out in the public domain with for and against the issue. So let the courts ultimately decide. But what the government had done is to do what was expected of it. That was a substitution order from a court of competent jurisdiction, the CCT, which the federal government abided by.
Abari further maintained that the suspension of the CJN will not affect the forthcoming elections.
His removal will not impact in any way on the credibility of the election, and there is nothing that is going to affect the elections in any way. The CJN is not the chief electoral officer of the country. He is not the REC. He is not the ANEC chairman. He is just an ordinary voter like any other person. It is only the fact that he has been removed. That's all.
A spokesperson for the People's Democratic Party (PDP) Presidential Campaign Council, Kazim Afebwa, is condemning the suspension of Justice Walter Onoyen as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, CJN. Speaking in an interview with Newsman, Afebwa described the suspension of Justice Onoyen as an alleged attempt by the federal government to achieve their ulterior motive ahead of the general elections.
This states that in Section 3B that if you admit to a mistake and error in your submissions, in your asset declaration, then the matter is settled. But these days, they want to apply the laws, haphazardly, so that they will achieve their ulterior motive. And what is that motive? The motive is that they just want to get rid of the judiciary, inflict maximum fear in the system, so that when elections come in February 16 and this government is voted out of power, then they can unleash mayhem on the system.
He maintained that the presidency wants to get rid of the judiciary and inflict maximum fear in the system. Members of the Nigerian Bar Association, Civil Society Organization of Nigeria, and the opposition parties are calling on the federal government to revoke the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen. Speaking during a protest in Abuja, the spokesman of the Coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP, Ikenga Ugochinyere, described the suspension of the CJN as a violation of judicial process.
It is shameful that President Muhammad Buhari relied on and used a forged judicial tribunal order for both to suspend the Chief Justice of Nigeria and appoint a factional Chief Justice that the order was forged and fictitious.
In a similar development, a group under the aegis of Coalition of Southeast Voters is condemning the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen. Speaking during the group's protest in Enugu State, the spokesman of the group, Tony Uwazuo, describes the action of the presidency as a total breach of the Constitution and judiciary.
Southeast voters' voice declare as follows. 1. President Muhammad Buhari should immediately reverse the illegal and purported suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen. The action of General Muhammad Buhari is ultra-vires his powers, unconstitutional, null and void, and of no effect whatsoever. Consequently, we do not recognize the person of Justice Tanko Muhammad as the Chief Justice of the Federation in whatever capacity he is purported to preside over the functions of the
He urged the Nigerian Bar Association to take up its responsibility and promote the rule of law by defending its constitution. Rivers State Governor Wike is alleging that the federal government only shows interest anytime elections are around the corner. Addressing a crowd of party supporters in Oburi, in Kano local government area of Ogoni, Governor Wike urged the people of Ogoni to start looking elsewhere for solutions for their problems. The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC), Ayuba Waba, is insisting on a minimum wage of 30,000 naira for all workers. At a House of Representatives public hearing today, Ayuba also called for the removal of the clause exempting organizations with less than 25 workers from paying the proposed minimum wage of 30,000 naira. Recall that President Muhammadu Buhari had last week sent a minimum wage bill of 27,000 naira to both chambers of the National Assembly following the approval of the National Council of State. The National Independent Electoral Commission INEC is organizing a two-day training workshop for the Interagencies Consultation Committee on Electoral Security in partnership with the European Sector for Election Support across the country. The INEC Director, Electoral Training, Ifeanyi Agoha, who explained the benefits of the training in Enugu State, urged the security agencies to take it serious.
Security is therefore important, as it will serve to equip the electoral personnel with knowledge of our electoral processes, electoral environment, electoral laws and guidelines, and the risk elements inherent or associated with them. I implore participants to take the training seriously, as it will deepen their standard of electoral operational guidelines.
At a similar training in Adamawa State, the resident electoral commissioner, Kazim Galdam, advised the security personnel on the dangers of interference with the electoral process.
As election officials and security agencies, both INEC and security agencies are supposed to be very, very non-partisan, neutral, objective, fair in the conduct of their duties. We also want the security agencies, as much as possible, to ensure that there is no interference in the electoral process, because interference will inhibit and block the quality of the election.
Also, the Commissioner of Police in Taraba State, David Akinremi, condemned the reckless attitude of some security officers and called for dedication in the discharge of their duties.
We have a duty which is sacred, and we're not going to compromise on that duty. And I want to use this opportunity to warn those who want to perpetrate crime, violence and thuggery in the state, that we will deal decisively with them, the political gladiators and actors. No matter how highly placed they might be, the law gives us the power to deal with them decisively, and that's what we're going to do.
State Governor Orji is expressing disappointment over the endorsement of the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Abubakar Atiku, by the Apex Igbo Socio-Cultural Organization, Ohaneze Ndibo. Kalu, who expresses disappointment in an interview with newsmen in his Camp Nea country home in Igbere Bende local government area of the state, said that the John Ngodo-led executive of the organization betrayed the people's trust and exposed the body as being partisan. He maintained that Ohaneze is a socio-cultural organization and should not be seen to be partisan, and described the endorsement as wrong and capable of decimating the organization into two factions if not rescinded. Governor Keze Ikpeazu is insisting that equity, fairness and justice must be considered in the decision on who governs Abia State. Speaking to select journalists at Governor's Lodge, Aba, Governor Ikpeazu said the founding fathers of Abia State came up with Charter of Equity to guarantee fairness and peaceful coexistence among all the component units of the state, and urged politicians to demonstrate sense of justice in their aspirations.
About respect for all of the people of Abia State, especially people from Abia South. And I hear people say, oh, no, Abia is in a state of emergency and there's need for a doctor. So when the doctor comes, nobody should ask where the doctor comes from. But if Abia is conscious enough to ask questions, Abia could ask, this doctor, the last patient you treated, how is he or she? Is he alive or dead? If the patient is dead, I would decline treatment from that same doctor. But I have to say this, nobody has exclusive privilege of knowledge to turn things around. Nobody.
News now on Flow 94.9 FM continues shortly with business, foreign and sports news. Stay tuned. To the business news. An engineering and project management firm based in the British Virgin Islands, Process and Industrial Developments Limited, has approached the United States District Court of Columbia seeking to enforce an $8.9 billion arbitral award against the federal government of Nigeria. The papers filed by the British firm before the U.S. court on arbitral award against the federal government followed a failed power project for which the federal government signed a 20-year agreement with the foreign firm in 2010. Now, moving over to the foreign scene, Sudan President Omar al-Bashir has vowed to restore peace in the state of South Kordofan, where Sudanese forces are fighting rebels as protesters plan to hold anti-government rallies in the country's conflict zones. The protests which were triggered by a government decision to raise the price of bread, have rocked the East African country for weeks, and the demonstrations have spiraled into nationwide rallies against the government of Bashar, who swept to power in an Islamist-backed coup in 1989. Finally, in sports, former WBA World Super Middleweight champion George Groves has announced his retirement from boxing 4 months after losing his WBA belt to fellow Briton Callum Smith. Groves, who became world champion at the 4th attempt when he beat Russia's Fedor Chudinov in Sheffield in 2017, said he wanted to go out at the top. You're listening to News Now on Flow 94.9 FM on Just before we go, let's take another look at our headlines. Code of Conduct Tribunal adjourns Justice Onoyen's trial indefinitely. NLC insists on 30,000 naira minimum wage as National Assembly begins public hearing. Former Abia State Governor warns Ohanes and Libu against partisanship. And on the foreign scene, Sudan President vows to restore peace amid protests. Thanks for being with us. Remember, your vote is your right to a better Nigeria. Do not sell it. Do join us at 6:45 a.m. noon and 6 p.m. every weekday for additional newscast. This is Flow 94.9 FM, the flow of God's own state. You can send your views or information to flowfmnews@gmail.com or visit www.flownews.com.ng for more stories. This bulletin was edited by Precious Chima, supervising editor Samson Eze. I am Mercy Orji. Have a great evening.
Join our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Flow949FM. And now, introducing our YouTube channel, Flow949FM. Watch us live as we bring you trending news, politics, and lots of entertainment content. All you have to do is go to YouTube, type Flow949FM, click on the subscribe button, share, and do not forget to click on the bell icon. Flow 94.9 FM, the flow of God's own state.